So we're going to do proportional transfer. We start with the idea that there are 5 arches along this wall. Means we can't do the finding the middle, so it's trickier. And what we're going to do is take the proportions of these spaces, column, arch, and we're going to transfer them proportionally to the wall. And this will allow us to draw everything in proper perspective. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. So we're taking this segment with its proportional relationships, transferring it to the large side of our wall. You can do either side, but the bigger one makes more sense. It's just easier. And we're going to mark those along the edge of that wall. And once we've got them marked, we can draw lines back to the vanishing point from each of those marks. And then we draw a diagonal from corner to corner. And wherever there's an intersection between the diagonal and those lines, we can drop a vertical, and that places all of the arches and columns in proper perspective along that wall. It's rather magical. So even though it leads to a little bit of line fatigue, it's worth it. Now we're going to do this on our drawing. So I'm going to do it again for you here. We start with that right side, the long side. That's the one we're going to mark up. And we're going to divide it into 5 equal spaces because there are 5 arches. Remember though that these marks just provide us with the spatial relationship, but not the marks that we need for edges. If you remember on the previous columns, those divisions were in the middle of the column, right? We need the edge. So we're going to mark on each side of the line so we get the edges rather than the middle. And those marks are the ones we're going to draw back to the vanishing point. Those are the important marks. And so we're going to do the same thing, draw back to the vanishing point, and then draw a diagonal, and wherever there's an intersection, we're going to draw a vertical line. And magically, we get the columns and the arch spaces in perfect perspective. It's beautiful. So there's another thing we need. We need to know where the top of the arch is on this wall. So if we come across along the top of the arches on our original wall, where that line meets the corner, and also where we're going to start the arc, there are points there. Connect those points with the vanishing point and draw out across your wall. And that gives you the top of the arch and where the arch starts. So we can start filling in, darkening in. I'm just going to do this first one, the biggest one on the right. And we find the middle so that we know where the arch crests. That's important to do. Our arch is not going to be symmetrical when we draw it. You'll notice that it's asymmetrical, and you just have to figure it out freehand. But it's very effective once you get the hang of it. Now, there are some finishing touches that we can put on these. It's tiny, so pay attention to this. We start with the corner of the column, the first column, see where that arrow is? We're going to draw a horizontal through that point. And that gives us the bottom of that column. And then we're going to pick a point. We pick how thick do we want it. I'm going to put it right there where that arrow is. And I'm going to draw a vertical up through that line. We need to do the same thing up above where the arc starts, because otherwise we wouldn't know where to start the arch for the back of the arch. So you do it the same way. Pick the point, draw straight across a horizontal line, straight across, and where it intersects, that vertical line, that's where we can start the curve. So we can darken this in, and then we're going to have to do it the arc by hand, right? It's just like the other one, except it's to the right a little bit. And now it's important that we get the thickness of all of these arches the same. So see where that arrow is? The bottom corner of that arch, draw a line from that point back to the vanishing point, and that will allow us to get them all the same in perspective, because then you can go to the next arch. Oh, and you have to do it up above too, by the way. Draw a line back um, from where that upper arrow is so that you know where to start the curve on each of those. But once you've drawn those back to the vanishing point, then it's just a matter of putting in the horizontals from that point. Draw a horizontal, and where it intersects that line. You'll notice that the farther back you go, the less it matters because it's so tiny. It's almost tiny here, too tiny here, but it works. So we draw the horizontals where they intersect. Those lines we put verticals, and then we draw the arc and back just as we did on that first arch. So this will give you a rather amazing illusion of 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional surface, which is what linear perspective is all about. And if you can pay attention to these details, sometimes these details make a big difference. And you'll notice that in other things that you draw. So if you know how to approach these details, it's going to make a big difference in the quality of your drawing and your understanding of how we see things. So there's the second arch. Now we can do some enhancements that aren't necessary. I'm actually not asking you to do this. You can draw a back wall. Just pick a point and connect it with the vanishing point. That will give you the back wall behind those. And then you can shade things in, and I'm not asking you to do that either, but I just thought I would show you what it looks like because it's kind of cool. And there you go. So enjoy